Our today's question ERQ is discuss ethical considerations in the use of animal research to study hormones and behavior. Now here let's underline the three important keywords. First is discuss. The second is ethical considerations and third is animal research in hormones and behavior. Okay, so that means you have to take an animal study from hormones and behavior topic which comes under biological approach. So what you have to do with this study, you have to focus on its ethics. So focus on ethics of the studies that you will be mentioning in your ERQ. Third keyword is discuss. So what does that mean? It means that you need to write the ethics used in these studies and broken in these studies, what alternatives could have been used instead. So discuss basically means for and against, balanced review of ethics used in the study. So let's start. Remember, I'm going to give you almost a ready-made answer. So you may stop the video in between, note down the answer. So you must start with the ERQ with an introduction. Now, this introduction must revolve around ethics for sure, used in biological approach. First paragraph goes like this. Often it is not possible to study biological factors in behavior in humans due to ethical considerations. Instead, animals are often used. They are used because they are physiologically and anatomically similar to humans. They are readily available and they have a short lifespan, which makes it possible to study a behavior over several generations. However, there is a debate in psychology about whether it is ethical to use animals in the study of biological factors such as hormones. The question is whether the costs outweigh the benefits. So here we are done with the introduction that carries 2 marks. The question has been introduced and the essay is focused consistently on the demands of the question. So after introduction, the students need to write a specific knowledge. Means explain about one specific hormone and its effect on the animals. This explanation is then followed by a supporting study. So now let's write the second paragraph. One of the great discoveries in biology was the discovery of the hormone leptin. Leptin appears to play a role in stopping our eating. When we eat, our leptin levels rise in line with glucose levels. When leptin reaches a certain level, the hypothalamus signals that we are full. The discovery was made by Readymade. He used 2 mice. One mouse was normal, but the other mouse was hyperphagic. That is, it couldn't stop eating and was obese. Readymade believed that one of the 2 mice must have something biological that the other mouse did not. To test this, he sewed the 2 mice together, joining the circulation systems. He found that the hyperphagic mouse lost weight. This was the beginning of the process that led to the isolation of the hormone leptin. So here we are done with the study, and now you students know that a relevant animal study of a hormone is to be given in this answer. Now let's go back to the question. The question here asks us discuss the ethics. So now in next paragraph you need to write about the ethical concerns that were there in the study. Let's write the next paragraph of the answer that goes like this. This research has some serious ethical concerns. One of the basic ethical standards is to avoid undue stress or harm. It is clear that this study caused serious physical harm to the mice. They would have to be humanely euthanized at the end of the experiment. One of the other guidelines for animal research is 3 R's, that is reduce, refine, replace. In this case, the number of animals was literally 2. So the number was minimum, necessary. However, the question is whether the procedure could have been refined so that it would not be traumatic for the mice. The researchers should have had a vet available to oversee the process and to make sure that the mice suffered as little pain as possible. The final R, replace, asks whether the researcher could have used another way to investigate this question without using the animals. Although it may have taken longer to find certain results, this might have been done through blood analysis. Now this paragraph demonstrates critical thinking with regards to the ethics in the study, and I have included a basic explanation of the 3 R's. So now you know that how to need to write ethical concern here in this kind of question. And now let's move to the next paragraph. As IB students need to write minimum 2 to 4 studies. So in next paragraph of the answer, we will write another supporting study. So here it goes. Not all animal research is as unethical as Friedman's study. Meany carried out a study to see if stress in childhood would lead to memory impairment in old age. Research has shown that adverse childhood experiences have a negative effect on health, but these are all correlational studies. And in addition, it is difficult to monitor the health developments of an individual across the lifespan. This is why Meany used rats. Rats from the same litter were allocated to one of 2 conditions. In one condition, they were taken away from the mother soon after birth and were groomed by the researchers using brushes. The other condition was taken away from the mother but not groomed. This led to higher levels of stress and an increased levels of glucocorticoids. When the rats were 2 years old, they were put into a pool of milky water where they were to find a platform to get out of the water. Meany found that the rats that were handled by the researchers learned the location quickly, but the unhandled rats, those with high levels of glucocorticoids, took longer to find the platform. Meany argued that the high levels of glucocorticoids in childhood leads to the inability to manage stress throughout their life and hippocampal cell death as a result of high cortisol level, leading to memory impairment. Here we are done with the second study. As per the requirement of the question, now we need to discuss on the ethical issues of this study. So let's do the next paragraph where you will write the ethical issues. Meany's research also has the problem of harm to the animals. He euthanized the rats in order to measure the volume of the hippocampus. At the time of the research, there was no other way to do this. Today, modern scanning techniques would allow for the rat's brain to be measured without having to kill it. In addition, it was important that Meany's used as few rats as possible and that they are kept in conditions that are considered to be naturalistic as possible. So this was an explanation of the ethics relevant to the study that you need to write. I hope you have understood how to write and structure it. Now let's get back to the question that says discuss the ethics. So here the command term discuss means that you have to now analyze and write the cost benefit analysis. So you have already written 2 supporting relevant studies and you have also talked about the ethics used in both the studies. Now this next paragraph is an important one as this is the cost benefit analysis. That means you are highly going to focus on the discuss part of the question now. So let's learn how to write this part. In both the cases, the researcher has to carry out a cost-benefit analysis to justify the research. However, the results cannot be known with the certainty before doing the experiment. It may be that the expected benefits do not actually happen. In the case of Friedman's research, although leptin was discovered, it has not shown to be effective as treatment for obesity. However, leptin has been used to explain some of the cases of obesity. In Meany's research, the findings support that we see in humans and help researchers to understand the role of cortisol through experimental methods. As already mentioned, it is important that the 3 R's are used in research. For example, with refinement, that is keeping the rats in the naturalistic conditions. The researchers can eliminate the stress of confinement. Especially in older research, there is this question of whether the animal stress of living in poor conditions may have played a role in findings. In Meany's research, the level of care for the animals was important so that the stress could be isolated to the lack of maternal grooming. However, the ethical standard of reduction is problematic. If we reduce the numbers too low, then we cannot be sure if the findings are reliable. The third R is a replace. It is a question whether we can easily replace the animals with the computer models or in vitro testing. In case of Friedman's research, it would be impossible to use a computer model to find a hormone that we are not sure that exists. Computer models have to be based on certain amount of knowledge in order to be built. Theoretically, in mini study, we could have used in vitro testing looking at the effect of glucocorticoids in hippocampal cells. The problem is that animals, including humans, are systems. Mini's research showed the interaction of environment, genetics, hormones, and memory over the lifetime of an animal, something that is not currently possible with cell cultures. Although in vitro can show us what happens at macro level, it does not allow us to see behavior that is the result of these changes at the macro level. So here we discussed about the cost benefit analysis that serves the purpose of discuss command term in the question. Now next is your last paragraph, that is your conclusion. Writing conclusion is also very important. It carries full 2 marks. So make sure you write the right one. Here it goes. The question whether to use animals in research is complex. We recognize to treat the animals ethically, but such practices may put limitations to necessary research. Both studies above have contributed to our understanding of the role of hormones in human behavior. But it can be argued that it happened at a great cost to the animals. In considering 3 hours prior to carrying out the research, psychologists are attempting to be ethical in their practice. It is important that we continue to question this practice with the hope of decreasing the number of animals used. We are done with our ERQ. Wasn't that simple? So you learned the structure and you also got to learn that what all content you need to write in this answer. So that's all for today. If you liked my video, please like, share and subscribe, and keep getting more IB Psychology ERQs here on my channel, and prepare yourself well for your exam.